Hi, everyone, and welcome into Joshing Around Milwaukee. As always, my name is Josh Albrecht, and with me is my good friend.
Hey, it's Josh Albrecht.
That's right, Josh Albrecht and Josh Albrecht, and we're joshing around telling you about all the great things that there are to do and experience here in the city of Milwaukee, and we're very, very excited to have our guest on today, Carlo Emanuele, the local entrepreneur and first-time author of the book, The Sins We Inherit, who will be joining us. Carlo, thank you so much for being here.
The Joshes, thanks for having me on. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah. So first and foremost, just, you know, there's a ton of history and things that you put in the book, and we're going to get into that. But tell the people a little bit about you, about Carlo.
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. I was born and raised in Milwaukee. So I grew up in West Dallas till I was about 5 years old. Then the vast majority of my upbringing was in Greenfield. I went to Greenfield High School. Played basketball in high school, and then eventually went on to Carroll College. And so lifelong Milwaukee resident. Yep. It's a really important part of my life. You know, after that, I was in an executive position with Direct Supply. I was there for about 6 years. And then I moved on to Brady Corporation. And after that, I spent a lot of time in private equity. And really from there, I always had this entrepreneurial spirit, and that's kind of where the germ of the idea started to potentially create a novel.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously a lot of that, you have to make connections.
Totally.
Right? When you're going through that path and that, as you mentioned, that entrepreneurial spirit. And one of those is with the 3rd Street Market Hall, which is actually where we are right now in the 620 studios doing this live. So why tell us a little bit about your connections with the 3rd Street Market Hall.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird path how I got there. So this will sound a little weird, but I'll get to the point, I promise. I actually bought a dog from Omar. My ex-wife now, but at the time we were looking for a new puppy, and we had a friend connection with Omar and his wife, and we went and looked at a dog. Ultimately, we named the dog Jersey, and Omar and I got to talking. I would say about a month later, he brought me in on this cool idea he had for a market hall. And I've seen it work in other cities like Nashville, Philly, and he came and gave me an early tour, and just his vision for it, I just thought was amazing. But more than that, if I'm going to make an investment in really anything, I tend to look at like the people that are in charge of it, what the idea looks like, how much passion they have around it, and just his vision for it was super contagious. And I would say after about 15 minutes, I'm like, I'm in. I think it's amazing. I mean, I think what was the second best food hall in the country, it was just named. I don't know who the hell got first, but this one's pretty great. And it was an awesome investment. But more than that, it's just like, I just believe in, like, if you believe in a friend and back them up, you'll get that money back. You'll get that time back. And you know, I'm really proud of him. I'm certainly proud of the 3rd Street Market Hall and my connection to it. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, pretty amazing to be able to be, for those not familiar with 3rd Street Market Hall, it's right in the heart of downtown Milwaukee, and, you know, steps away from the Baird Center and Fiserv Forum. So it's become a huge tourist destination. So many people come through and spend time here. And it's a great family gathering spot too. It's like perfect all ages type of thing. So being there at the beginning though, when it was literally just the skeleton, right?
Yeah.
Like just some beams and an idea.
Yeah.
What's it like now to see it thriving and vibrant?
Well, to see it thriving and vibrant, I bring my kids here all the time. I come here personally, eat lunch occasionally and things like that. And just to be a part of it is kind of special. And just to see the vibe and the connection that it has is really, really cool. But I would say even more than that, Grand Avenue Mall, as being a Milwaukee guy, when it was that forever, where my parents grew up and they spent time here when they were younger, and to see it kind of fall off was a little bit heartbreaking because it's in such an important part of the city. You got one of the biggest parking structures next to it. You got all the hotels here. So just to see this be like a hub for the city in a great location at a local landmark has been, I mean, it's awesome. It's just really, really exciting to be a part of.
Being able to give back to the community in a way too, having a head of a dream, and Omar's done such a great job bringing in amazing team members to make it happen. Like, yeah, I mean, I can imagine how proud you are. It's like, maybe it's like writing a book.
That's a good teaser, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I didn't need as much investors as Omar probably did to make this thing go.
Just a few.
Just a few.
But it's all about building a universe, right? It's like building the story, building what you're going to tell people, and how they're going to become involved, and how they're going to become passionate about it, and become fans of it. And you got to build that universe of at the market hall, it's building the characters who all have their vendor spaces, right? And
That's right.
how that all weaves together and tells a story for the visitor. And so that's why, as we continue our conversation here and talk about your novel, like that's what I'm excited about, bringing your experience from growing up and having lived in Milwaukee, and bringing that story of this universe that you've created, but a universe that's going to be kind of familiar to some people.
Yeah, it really will be. So one of the things that I love about the novel, outside of there's a father-daughter connection too, which I'll get into in a moment. That's really, really important to me because I have two daughters. Matter of fact, Eliza just turned 16 today. She just passed her driver's test.
Oh, nice. Boy!
I don't know whether like chill the champagne or like crap my pants about it, but it's pretty cool.
Maybe
for her.
both.
Maybe both. But I think one of the things that I think Milwaukee will really get their arms around and appreciate about the novel is Milwaukee's like a central character in the book. So for folks that have seen the movie Mystic River, or that love the show The Wire, I mean, you can watch The Wire for 5 minutes and realize this doesn't exist anywhere but Baltimore. I think this novel will feel very much like that. There are a lot of Easter eggs with different locations where I grew up, even historical things that have taken place in the city. Milwaukee's really a central character in the story. The other part of it is the novel's really about a guy who had a similar upbringing to myself, got his way out of a really working class type of family, and had a successful business career. And at the same time, he's going through a really bad divorce. His patriarch mob boss of a grandfather dies, and he gets sucked back into that life. And this book is just really, really personal to me. And I think what readers will really latch on to is that it's not like a shoot-'em-up crime drama. There's a lot of good like shows and stories out there, like Mobland. Everybody loves that. That's a soap opera. This is a very realistic, fictional tale about a city that I love.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, very, very cool. We're gonna get more into the book, the characters, and kind of the inspiration behind it in a second. And also, I want to just ask you when we come back, what made you think I'm going to write a novel?
Yeah.
So stay tuned. All those questions will be answered when we come back on Joshing Around Milwaukee. Welcome back, everyone, to Joshing Around Milwaukee. We are having a lot of fun with our guest, Carlo, today, and I want to let you know that you can have a lot of fun this July when you hit the road on a custom Harley in the Fire Up Your Fantasy Motorcycle giveaway at Potawatomi. Just play with your rewards card for entries. More info online. Must be 21 and a rewards member to play. So before we went to break, Carlo, I said I needed to ask you before we got into the details of the story and everything, which are super interesting, and I love that it all ties back to Milwaukee. But you in that first segment, you told us about how kind of your path of how you got there. At what point was it? You know what? I'm going to write a book.
I think the germ of the idea was probably around for a really long time. So what I failed to tell you when you first asked a little bit about me is I come from a huge Italian-American family. There's 300 Emanueles just in the greater Milwaukee area. We had a family reunion when I was 17, and there was 300 people there. So I come from a huge family. There is any number of personalities and characters in my family that are just unique. As a matter of fact, my father used to always say when like the reality TV shows would first start coming out, like the Osbournes and stuff like that, the inside joke was, I mean, these people got nothing on the Emanueles. So I just think storytelling was inherently a part of who I was for a very long time. But really what drove it more than anything else, I do have an entrepreneurial spirit, and creating things is important to me. But more than anything else, to be honest and show a little bit of humility, which is rare, so enjoy it. Like, I was going through heartbreak. I was going through, a divorce after 17 years. And, for anybody who's gone through like that, it's like mourning a family member, right? So when I didn't have my kids, it's like, what do I do with my time now? And I needed something else to really dig into. And, my best friend, who's actually, he's sitting out there with my godsons, he's like, you should just start journaling this stuff. Cause I'm telling him, like, I'm anxious. I'm a little bit angry. Like, I need to figure this out. So, it started with just journaling my life and going back on it. And, as I was reflecting on the journaling and took a look, I'm like, some of this stuff is pretty interesting. Maybe I'll write a screenplay. And then when I tried to start writing the screenplay, I realized I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, that's too complicated. It's outside of my creative skill set. And I tweaked it into a novel and created character arcs. And it became such a cathartic thing and such a passion of mine that I've been like, it's been the most rewarding professional experience of my life by a lot. And it's just helped a ton. But really the genesis of it, if I can be completely honest, is I was going through a really hard time. And it was an opportunity for me to not only reflect on my life, the things that I've done good, the things that I wish I could have done better. And it turned into a book. I mean, my parents will make fun of me. They're like, Carlo, and I'm pretty type A if you haven't figured that out already. But my parents, they made fun of me early on. They're like, Carlo, you just like woke up one day and said you're going to write a book. I'm like, yeah, that kind of is how it happened.
Yeah.
You know, but I think the germ of the idea was there for quite some time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you've thought a lot about it. And, you know, if storytelling and you know, I'm sure with large family reunions, there's lots of, you know, jokes and barbs and storytellings and, you know, memories passed down.
Yeah.
That sort of is a breeding ground for being able to be a storyteller. And I'm sure that played a ton into it.
It did. And I don't know why it's not connected, but my grandfather, Carlo, who I was very close to, him passing away and my divorce happened similar time frames, not connected at all. But that was part of this too. Some of the book is just to honor him. I mean, he was, you know, he was a guy who probably went to school through 5th, 6th grade, but he was an entrepreneur. And the interesting part about him, he just had something about him where people would always want to be around him, and he was always the same guy. Like, you know, my grandma would bring the priest over occasionally after, you know, Sunday Mass, and he was that same guy as he was when he was sitting around with friends and family. Like, he used to take me to Walker's Pub on the South Side when I was 17, 18 years old, and I'd go sit at the bar stool next to him, and he'd walk in there and insult everybody, and they loved him for it. So he was just this really dynamic guy that knew how to own a room. When he was in a room, it was his. I think
always the main character.
He was just kind of the main character, right? And he's not necessarily in the book, but part of the story is that there's a patriarchal grandfather who passes away. It's not necessarily a central character in the book. It's kind of the specter over the entire novel.
Sure.
Right.
And a lot of that is to honor him.
Yeah.
So,
you know, there's essence like that, right? And I love that you decided, well, this is going to take place in Milwaukee too. So the essence of Milwaukee being in the book, as well as the family essence, right? So
absolutely.
How is Milwaukee sort of dripped throughout? How do you decide which park to feature, which beach to feature, which whatever, right? Like, how do you, like, you know, because there might be some places that are special to you. Maybe you don't want the world to know it. I don't know. Like,
yeah. So honestly, the most important thing for me was and this might sound weird, I did not want this to feel like a soap opera. I also did not want this to feel like saccharine or I was putting plugs in. I wanted it to feel like, for people who are from Milwaukee or grew up in similar neighborhoods or lifestyles that I had, that they would recognize this as a real story. And so to answer your question directly, Scordatos is my favorite Italian bakery. Everybody loves Glorioso's. Glorioso's is great, but Scordatos is my favorite. So when we had cookouts in the backyard, we use Scordatos bread as an example. Or, you know, when we're having a party, we're making Italian sausage. There's a scene in there where some guy puts ketchup on the Italian sausage and we call him a Metagon and almost kick him out, right? So like all that stuff is things that just was really a part of me growing up. And the other thing that was important to me also, the city and the suburb, like the outskirts, I wanted to be trickled out so you could get, this is a very distinct city depending on where you live and where you grew up. So I wanted, for people who grew up on the South Side like I did, I want you to feel what it's like to be on 48th and Burnham. For people where I live now in Pleasantville and Ozaukee County, like I wanted to feel, what does it feel like to be in Cedarburg, and the contrast of those things. And again, I don't want to oversell it, but Milwaukee it'll feel very lived in this novel.
Yeah.
But not forced.
Yeah. What about you, Josh? You're the mean streets of West Dallas.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a West Dallas guy?
So I grew up in West Dallas. Family's in Brookfield now, but yeah, that's one of the things too is when, you know, you kind of grew up in the suburbs too, and when you grew up here, you know, you tell people from outside like, well, Milwaukee, but there's so many different, you know, areas and cultures and things just 10, 15 minutes outside the city that are vastly different than if you're just someone who grew up downtown and grew up in this area. And so I love that. I love that.
Oh, thanks for saying that.
You're putting all the different pieces together to show it's more than just, you know, a 2-mile radius of what people might come to expect as Milwaukee. That's one of the reasons why we love doing the shows, because there's so much that Milwaukee and the surrounding area has to offer.
So much
that it makes sense to show it all. And now people will be able to experience that a little bit in your book as well.
A great way to like immerse yourself in the cultures and the people, the neighborhoods. There's 191 neighborhoods in Milwaukee alone. We're not even talking about the other cities we're talking about, right? So lots of stories, lots of connections, but each having their own individual neighborhood, each lifestyle. So
they definitely do. I like you bring up West Dallas, like Filippo's linguine with clams. I grew up, eating that constantly. Like
too much.
There's that part of it, but then there's there's also the smaller things that people who grew up here know about. Like, so if you grew up on the South Side, your summers consisted of going to church festivals.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But then if you grow up where I live now, it's like you have Strawberry Fest, which is great, and like some of those other things. But the vibe is totally different. Totally different.
Yeah.
And that was one thing growing up and then going to college and then being in the business community was I was never overwhelmed with meeting executives or like presenting in a room or things like that. What I got overwhelmed by early on was like just the stuff I wasn't familiar with. Like I'm going to a fancy restaurant. What the hell do I do with my napkin? Like what wine glass is mine? Like some of the stuff that I just wasn't exposed to growing up. And I hope it makes my ability to tell this story feel more real to people. And, again, the main character is named Costantino, which I know we'll get into. It's a fictional story, but there's a lot of me in that protagonist, the good and the bad. So the people who know me and know some of my sins, they'll be able to tell that too.
I love it.
Page 81.
Page 81.
Second paragraph.
Highlight.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about those characters and the plot and how you can get the book when we come back on Joshing Around Milwaukee. Stay tuned. Love it. Welcome back, everyone, to Joshing Around Milwaukee. We are having a great time with Carlo Emanuele, the author of The Sins We Inherit. He's also a local entrepreneur here in Milwaukee. We've had a great time. Carlo, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Tell us about the book. Give us the plot, what people can expect, what they're getting into with The Sins We Inherit.
Yeah, so the plot in my mind is it's basically like a combination of Breaking Bad and A Bronx Tale. So it's a story about the protagonist's name is Costantino Jr. Grew up in Southside Milwaukee neighborhood, working class, worked his way through college, successful business career. And at the same time, he went through a pretty devastating divorce. And at the same time, his grandfather, who was the mob boss of Milwaukee, passes away, and he gets brought back into that life. And really what the story is a man that's fighting for redemption at a hard time in his life, trying to reconnect with his daughter, Maddie, at the same time facing a lot of pressures from the organized crime community because there's a power vacuum now that his patriarchal grandfather passed away.
Ooh. That's spicy. Oh, I love it.
Ready for the HBO adaptation.
Yeah, right, there we go.
Yes.
There we go.
See, you were worried about the screenplay. You write the book first.
Write the book first, and someone else will write the screenplay.
And say, that's right. Hey, we'd like to make this into a movie.
That's
so tell people when they can get the book, where they can get the book. They've heard enough. They want it.
Yeah.
What do they do next?
Yeah, so pre-orders have started. You can find them on my website, thesinsweinherit.com. They're available on Amazon. The full book launch will be August 15th, so it'll be available in hard copy, soft cover, as well as ebook. My father's actually, I'm going to be doing an audiobook, and my father's going to be the voice of it, too, which I'm pretty proud of.
Cool.
The other thing for local retailers, I've been doing a ton of outreach with bookstores. It will be available for retail owners on Ingram Sparks with standard discounts they'd expect. I would ask people, go to the bookstore. If they don't have it, tell them to get it. And I'm doing a ton of outreach there, and I would expect a lot of bookstores locally to have it as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Carlo. Then again, thesinsweinherit.com is where you're going to be able to find all the information and sign up for the pre-orders, everything else. We really appreciate it. Can't look forward to quick enough to reading the book.
All right, appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this episode of Joshing Around. If you want to see past episodes or learn more, please visit visitmilwaukee.org. We'll see you next time. Boom.
All right, now we'll do the Fresh City Vibes.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Joshing Around Milwaukee. If you're seeing this part of today's episode with Carlo, it's because you're watching it on our social media channels or listening on the podcast, and we really do appreciate you doing so. Carlo, this is always the part of the show where Josh asks his big question. Oof. The pressure is on.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous.
It is a big one.
Okay.
So Here at Visit Milwaukee, we love to say that the city has fresh city vibes, which means that this. There's always something going on. Yep. It's a city that's always changing. We've got a lot of momentum right now, but we want to know from our guests, what's the thing that's giving you the vibes right now? What are you doing with the family? What are you doing on your own? Where are you going? What's the best custard? Tell us what it is.
Yeah, so my favorite thing, maybe a shameless plug, the biggest thing that I love to do is I love to take my kids here to 3rd Street Market Hall. There's plenty of activities to do, a variety of food to have. For an old school Italian vibe, I already plugged Scordado's once. I love that place. That, and it's beach season now. So those are probably the biggest.
Favorite beach?
What I will say is I'm doing for my daughter's birthday. I got a limo to pick up her and her friends, and we're doing a yacht trip by the Summerfest grounds.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
We just did that. She's pretty pumped about that. So I would say that's probably the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I hope our friends outside of Milwaukee are listening to that idea of what to do in Milwaukee in the summer.
That's right.
Because if you've never been to Milwaukee and you just hear like a little yacht trip, like outside of the Summerfest grounds, and what?
I'm sorry, what? No, you can do it. I mean, it's such a great idea for the summertime. Get a boat. Doesn't have to be a yacht. It can be a sailboat or one of the little Duffy boats, maybe, or maybe you want a kayak. There's plenty of ways, but getting on the water is so beautiful around the Summerfest grounds.
Now, I've only seen a picture of this thing, so I've been told it's a yacht. If it shows up, it's like a dinghy from Tommy Boy or something. My daughter's going to be upset.
It'll look like a yacht, but you have to paddle.
We have
it's
to
a
paddle.
boat.
Your daughter will be like, "Are you sure this is a yacht?"
Sure?
Yeah,
she'll throw me overboard. I'll need to let you.
Come on, paddle.
That's right.
Harder. Let's go.
That's right.
Very, very cool. Well, Carlo, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you nothing but the best and success with the book. I'm sure it'll be great. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate everything you're doing, and salute. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much again for joining us for this episode of Joshing Around Milwaukee. We've been doing this for 3 seasons, so if you want to go and watch a past episode, please do. You can find it on the same socials that you're watching us on now. And for more information, of course, go to visitmilwaukee.org. We'll see you next time. All righty.
Cool.